you're watching this, you're either a property maintenance inspector or you're trying to become one by studying for the ICC exam. So I'm hoping all this information will help you. I'm Michael Doles with Doles Enterprises, and we provide training and advice to folks in this profession. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've got multiple ICC certifications. I've been a building official, property maintenance inspector, building inspector of all types of projects, primarily in the Southeast. And I'm hoping I can share a little bit of this knowledge with you. So I'm going to wish you the best as you go through this training. It may be a little bit dry at times, but we're going to hit a few things in this first series of videos. We ask that you please subscribe and like these videos and help us in any way that you can financially by maybe a little contribution here and there. And we'll have all that information both later on in this video series as well as in the description. Click on the description, read down through there. You'll find some links to some helpful information. We think that's going to be available to you, and we'll wish you the very best in this profession. The purpose of codes is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare by regulating construction. Historically, codes have provided the means to reduce risk to acceptable levels. We have been focusing on building codes. However, whether the subject of the code is building construction, property maintenance, fire prevention, electrical, mechanical, or plumbing, the purpose is the same: to protect the public health, safety, and welfare by regulating construction. Today we have model codes suitable for adoption throughout the country. A model code is a written set of regulations that provides the means for exercising reasonable control over construction and is available for adoption by cities, counties, states, or countries. Such codes are frequently amended by adopting jurisdictions with changes that are desirable for legal or local needs. The International Building Code is a model code, with new editions coming out every 3 years. Jurisdictions adopt the model code intact or customize it with amendments reflecting local needs. As you start preparing for the ICC exams, you'll need to have a copy of the current edition of the International Property Maintenance Code. You'll also need a current edition of the Residential Code. Now, these can be obtained at the ICC website, which is www.iccsafe.org. When you go on there, you can kind of explore everything there. Go ahead and look at the exam bulletin also, and be looking over that. I suggest you read through and tab up your code book very well. Local ordinances and all will not be on this exam, so you'll need to kind of put those out of your mind when you take the exam. The exam's going to be based upon the text of the ICC. Again, look at the guides from ICC on their website, and I'm sure your building official or your administrator of your department will help you with this. So I wish you the very best of luck, but you need to be on the ICC website and start learning a little bit about that. And again, ICC comes up with this exam. We don't. So what you're doing locally may not have anything to do with passing this ICC exam. Keep that very much in mind. The International Property Maintenance Code is a model code that regulates the minimum maintenance requirements for existing buildings. And again, this code is how you'll take your exam with the ICC, so it may not have the information you're going to have in the local ordinances, so always keep that in mind. Issuing the building permit is the most important step in the enforcement and administration of building codes. The application for the building permit and the permit itself are the two most important documents a building code official has to determine what the builder or contractor is doing on the job site. It is crucial that the building permit be issued in a prescribed fashion and that all necessary steps be taken to ensure that the permit is issued properly. The permit should require complete information as to ownership and which contractor is doing the job. Section 105.1 of the IBC lists the requirements for the permit. The building permit process is the primary method by which a governmental agency verifies that construction complies with the minimum requirements of the code to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The code is explicit in describing the progressive steps in this permitting process and gives the building official broad authority to carry out the duties. Typically, an application for a permit by the owner or owner's agent starts the process. However, in some cases, meetings or consultations with the building department may precede the application. Permit requirements are specifically detailed in the International Building Code starting in Section 105. When is a permit not required? There are 13 items listed in Section 105 of the IBC. These items are in addition to those that may be specifically exempted by local ordinance or other situations. Consult with the administrative authority on permit issue exceptions. There are exceptions for public service agencies, utility and gas companies, public authorities. These are all subject to regulations by other agencies on the state or federal level. Prior to the issue of the permit, a written application is required from either the owner of the building or from the agent for the owner. Keep in mind that in many cases, the type of documentation required by the issuer of the permit is dictated by the type of structure being built. For example, when applying for a permit to construct a single-family unit, it may not be necessary to submit complete architectural plans of the individual structure. The builder of a large commercial office building in a downtown area, however, will always be required to submit complete plans in order to be eligible for the building permit. Building officials should be thoroughly aware of what is required for the issuance of a particular permit. Regardless of how simple the proposed construction, it is important that the applicant be required to describe as specifically as possible what he or she is attempting to do on the job site. It is also crucial that the permit application be signed, attesting to the truth of the statements contained therein. To best prepare for possible litigation, an application should be extremely specific and comprehensive. The person whose job it is to approve or reject permit applications must be carefully instructed on their duties. Once an application is approved and a permit is granted and construction has begun on a building site, it becomes difficult to revoke the issued permit. This is true even if a mistake exists on the permit itself. Courts frequently lean toward not enforcing the code rather than revoking a permit on which a builder has mistakenly relied, through no fault of his or her own. There are time limitations on applications as dictated in the IBC. The application is deemed to be abandoned after 180 days from the date of the filing. However, the building official is authorized to grant extensions of 90 days, and this may be done for multiple times. Extensions must be in writing and provide justifiable cause. The building official shall keep official records of applications received, permits and certificates issued, fees collected, reports of inspections, and notices and orders issued. Such records shall be retained in the official records for the period required for retention of records as established by the local legislative body. So now let's spend a little bit of time talking about property maintenance specifically. So why code enforcement? Public safety is perhaps the most important outcome of an effective code enforcement activity, but code enforcement's long-term effects are far more reaching. Let's take a look at some of these things. For instance, code enforcement builds a sense of community because code enforcement mitigates many problems, and the community will be united around the upkeep. This is part of the, if you always heard the broken window syndrome, where one person starts repairing their house, others may do the same. Think of it like this, when you start cutting the grass, one neighbor goes out and starts cutting their yard, next thing you know you're out there cutting yours. It's just a kind of a sense of community that we all have. To expand just a little bit, code enforcement enhances the economic development in a community. New residents and businesses as well as visitors are attracted to a community that boasts of its amenities, including well-maintained streets, parks, and neighborhoods. The better your community, the more likely people will be to want to invest in it. And code enforcement increases property values. Neighborhood blight brings property values down. So therefore the reverse is also true. Enforcing codes keeps neighborhoods strong, translating into higher values and more tax dollars for the community. Code enforcement improves the quality of life for everyone involved. With higher property values and aesthetically pleasing neighborhoods, your residents feel a sense of pride in their community. Now, many jurisdictions require their officers hold certifications from organizations such as the International Code Council to demonstrate their competence and their professionalism. This is something I think you need to really go after. Speaking also of credentials, most code enforcement officers are required to be sworn in as some type of a quasi-officer, and they may even be issued a badge because they may be charged with writing municipal summons to appear in court. So these are things you have to think about. But going after ICC type certifications, I think, is just good all the way around. It provides a more professional atmosphere by everybody involved. And, you know, again, if you're in government work, I'm telling you right now, paper never hurts. They usually jurisdictions like to see certifications. I encourage you to go after ICC certifications, not only in property maintenance, but also residential building, and then continue to expand upon that and go after the other trades, electrical, plumbing, mechanical systems. Start in the residential and then move on up to the commercial, maybe even fire codes, whichever pathway you choose. But education is the key to all of this. As previously stated, the state of South Carolina has approved the International Property Maintenance Code as a permissive code, which can be adopted by the local jurisdiction. It must be specifically adopted by the jurisdiction. It provides for the establishment of the Code Enforcement Department. It applies to structures and property, both residential and commercial, and sets minimum standards. Chapter 1 of the International Property Maintenance Code establishes the Board of Appeals. Note, the Property Maintenance Code does not apply to new construction. So we're going to have a little practice here. We're going to do some IPMC practice questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my email address in the description with this link. And I want you to go down there and email me that you've completed the exam, and I will send you the answers. I'm not going to give them to you right now. You need to dig through your book and find them. Practice. It's all about time management on these exams, folks. A notice of violation is deemed to be properly served if A, faxed to the owner, B, left with a neighbor, C, the owner is notified by telephone, D, sent by certified or first-class mail to the last known address. Dwellings shall be provided with heating facilities capable of maintaining a daytime room temperature of 65 degrees Fahrenheit in all rooms except A, kitchens, B, bathrooms, C, dining rooms, D, hallways. The court can compel a code official to perform duties by issuing a writ of A, process, B, reprimand, C, mandamus, D, prohibition. Structures which are illegally placed or constructed across a property line are referred to as A, encroachments, B, encumbrances, C, public easements, D, setback violations. A writ of mandamus is described as A, testimony taken out of court under oath, B, a written statement sworn before a notary public, C, legally sufficient evidence to be considered as fact, D, an order to a public official from the court to perform a specified act or duty. As a general rule, a city, county building department may not impose building regulations on A, federally owned property, B, federally leased property, C, local government owned property, D, local government leased property. In a multiple dwelling unit facility, there are 4 individual dwelling units and 6 rooming units. How many water closets would be required in the structure? A, 4, B, 5, C, 6, D, 7. If a building code provision is less stringent than the same provision of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the building code takes precedence. True or false? An inspector must demonstrate reasonable cause in order to obtain a search warrant for municipal inspections. True or false? True or false? When a lawsuit is brought, most often the code official is named as a defendant. True or false? The public duty doctrine makes it difficult to sue successfully a code official for negligence. A federally or state leased building is immune to local building code and zoning ordinances. True or false? A code official may search a premises without a warrant or consent of the owner if the official has probable cause to believe a violation exists. True or false? Code violations that are in plain view do not give the code official authority to explore the premises to search for other violations. True or false? The code official can enforce restrictive covenants between private property owners. True or false? If a code official fails to inspect a building properly, yet no one is injured as a result, there can be no legal liability for negligence. True or false? Local governments derive the authority to adopt building codes from A, the local district court, B, the states, C, the Board of Appeals, D, local legislative councils. What are the three major forms of local government? A, county, home rule, municipality, village. B, county, municipality, home rule, municipality. C, municipality, home rule, municipality, and village. D, legislative, judicial, and executive. What term means a municipality attempts to adopt a building code in the absence of enabling legislation? The court has said the adoption is not one of the municipality's implied powers. Are we talking A, express power, B, implied power, C, essential and indispensable power, D, ultra vires? Why is home rule generally an advantage to municipalities and therefore to building code enactment? A, home rule makes it easier for the government to enact legislation to protect public welfare. B, home rule always bars state interference in purely local affairs. C, municipalities never need to garner state approval in order to adopt legislation. And D, home rule loosens control over peripheral codes such as solar access ordinances. Which is an act of home rule charter with an unlimited powers? A, adoption of a building code without federal legislation. B, adoption of a building code without state enabling legislation. C, giving full authority to adopt codes to the building commissioner. D, suspension of the building code when it is too costly to comply. Which is an act of home rule charter with limited powers? A, specific authority to adopt a building code comes from the charter itself or from the state. B, a draft of the charter is sent to a state agency for review. C, the state legislature enacts the charter and then grants powers to the municipality. Or D, authority to enact legislation comes from the city council. Review the following question. Who controls the construction industry in those localities that have no building code departments or minimal standards? What is the difference between a building code and a fire code? What is the purpose of zoning ordinances? Which is not an exception to the general rule of sovereign immunity? What is the power of the Consumer Product Safety Commission? Which type of proposed structure would not necessarily require the submission of complete architectural plans? Generally speaking, a building official will have no trouble revoking a permit when Which statement about documenting an inspection is false? Which of the following could result from the examination of building plans by someone other than a qualified expert? Which is not one of the important pieces of information to obtain when handling a complaint? What type of testimony is utilized to prove most cases? Which piece of evidence is not admissible in court? Why should building departments adopt written guidelines to cover areas not covered by the code? What constitutes an unreasonable search under the Fourth Amendment? One that takes place Which statement regarding building code inspections is false? A warrant is viewed as a last resort and should be sought only after entry has been refused. True or false? What is the easiest way for a building official to conduct an inspection while meeting the constitutional requirements of the Fourth Amendment? Generally speaking, when it is not necessary to obtain a property owner's permission to inspect the building. It's a win. Which is an example of consent and waiver of one's Fourth Amendment rights? Which is not an example of consent to search where two or more persons have equal rights of occupancy? Okay, we had a few practice questions. I want you to dig around in your book and become familiar with it. Don't overthink the questions. I'm going to give you a couple of exam tips that I hope will help you. First of all, just try to relax before you take the exam. Read all the directions very carefully and make sure you understand what the question is and what exactly is being asked. Look for key phrases. Narrow your choices down. Sometimes if you don't have an exact clue of which one's the right one, you can maybe eliminate a few others. And maybe ask yourself the question in a different light. Maybe that will help illuminate an answer. Again, eliminate answers that you know are wrong. And stop and just think about what you're doing and check your work for accuracy. And always do your best. And usually trust your instincts. You'll be surprised at how often you're right. The bottom line is, if you prepare, if you're comfortable and you're at ease, you will pass the exam. And again, the ICC exams are sometimes not really practical in the field, but that's the exam we have, right? And sometimes just setting up to take the test, especially with these some of the new computer-based exams, sometimes it can be a little bit aggravating getting that done. Make sure you let ICC know if you have any trouble with the test, so they know that the testing agency may have to make some corrections to help along the way. But I wish you the very best of luck, and I think you're going to do well. This is the first of a series of videos on property maintenance codes. We're going to have some more. Hopefully these practice questions are going to help you. And remember to like and share this feed. Thank you. This video is provided for the benefit of your profession, and it's a courtesy to you to share a little bit of knowledge. If you can help in any way with Cash App donations or anything like that, we always appreciate it. PayPal also. But if nothing else, please just subscribe and like, hit both those buttons if you would. That will help us tremendously in providing this service to other people. And we're going to we're going to try to build upon this content and get it out to you, because again, I want to help you in this trade. This presentation is based upon the knowledge and opinions of this presenter, Michael Doles, with Doles Enterprises, and is not to be considered in any way legal counsel or to be anything that asserts local, state, or national agencies, groups, or organizations. It's not intended to be used for legal advice in any way, and it's not exhaustive in that area with its reference. Questions on legal administration and enforcement of code should always go to your proper legal counsel in your jurisdiction. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope this practice exam and some of this information is helpful to you as you continue to look at our videos and try to learn and support us as best you can. Thank you very much. And reach out to me. I have my email down there, so send me emails and let me know how you're doing. I appreciate it. And if you need any advice or any private consultation, let me know, and we'll try to work something out and help you out as best we can.